Could this be the beginning of the end for Billy Napier and the Florida Gators? Just a couple of weeks ago, they knocked off Texas in a huge game there in the Swamp. Now reports from the boosters and some people that are tied to the program that the end could be near for the Florida head coach. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus. Gerhard Mathangani, Patrick Walsh with you. And speaking of Patrick, one of his overreactions just a couple of weeks ago is that Billy Napier would be gone. And Patrick, you're starting to look like Nostradamus a little bit as far as predicting things. This report now is really interesting for a lot of different reasons because, like we talked about, there are some signs of life here for Florida. DJ Lagway, even though they lost last week, they've played well. However, this report makes it seem like the fire and the flames are starting to heat up there on Napier.
And I think the firing of James Franklin basically gave the boosters a boost, no pun intended, to want to go ahead and pull the trigger on this.
Right.
Because, I mean, you look at James Franklin's buyout, the second richest in college football history.
Right.
And then you look at where Florida is this season. I mean, you brought up a point about last game. They came out on fire. I mean, absolutely on fire. We talked about this with Parker Ream yesterday. They looked like they couldn't be beat.
Yeah.
And then after the first quarter, they only mustered 162 total yards.
Yep, they say so they could tell of two halves. This is a tale of the first quarter and the last three because the first quarter they looked a lot like the way they looked against Texas. Very efficient with the football. I mean, nothing crazy, but I mean nothing to blow you away. But as you see, 162 yards, touchdown. But then I think when the game, it felt like when the game settled down, the better team took over. And with Florida always expects to be the better team taking over, not being taken over by a team like Texas A&M or anybody else. I think you're right about a lot of this might be circumstantial to the other jobs opening up. You already have Arkansas in the SEC. Florida's obviously more attractive. You could ask anybody in and around the league, where would you rather be? Just as far as resources, as far as where the talent is around you, I think Florida is the more attractive job. So how much of this would you put on it just being, hey, all these good jobs are starting to open up, and let's put our name in the hat there? Because Florida's a program typically runs things pretty tight.
Yeah, I mean, with James Franklin getting fired, I know I just alluded to that just a few minutes ago about maybe giving the boosters a boost. Now that James Franklin is open, maybe those Florida boosters want to go take a swing at Franklin there. But I mean, Billy Napier, with all due respect, he's a great guy.
Yeah. But
he reminds me of a former West Virginia coach. Great guy, just cannot get it done. And unfortunately for him, he hasn't been able to get it done. I know this year I believe he took over play calling and tried to save the ship. So far, it hasn't worked. We've only, I mean. I'll pull up a graphic here. They've scored 20 points twice this season.
Wow.
Texas and Long Island.
Jeez. Wow. Yeah.
And then another big indicator of their failure so far this year is their inability to convert on third down. 126th in FBS.
Right. That is insane. I don't care how good your defense is. You cannot have those kind of numbers on third down, not move the chains, continue to have to punt the football, and expect to stay in ball games close. But then people will argue on the other side about this, about the coaches, and it's like, hey, well, Billy Napier, as you see, his record there, a little just over 500. I brought up one thing, and you brought up a good counterpoint to this when we were just before we came on. This is a weird scheduling spot for these Flames to be, taking hold. Obviously, there's a lot of frustrations because you looked very good for 5 quarters. The 4 quarters against Texas and the first quarter against Texas A&M. Yep. But then you look terrible in the 3 quarters. But then you have a Mississippi State team coming into town. Mississippi State is good this season. Obviously, they're not elite. But Florida's a 9.5-point favorite. So what if Florida comes out there and dominates this team and wins for their coach? Then you're in an awkward situation where you're firing a coach after a win, 2 out of 3 wins in the SEC. Auburn can't even claim that. I mean, but I'm like I said, I'll let you bring up the point you brought up because it was something I did not think about from a scheduling perspective. But I just thought that all this is really interesting with Mississippi State in a game that they're favored by almost 2 touchdowns is next on the board.
Well, I think I brought up a couple of weeks ago that Billy Napier, when his job is on the line, he turns into prime Nick Saban, and I feel like you could make that argument against with the Texas game, but right now, seeing what happened last week against Texas A&M, I just don't see it anymore. But I mean, where do you go if you're Florida?
Yeah.
If James Franklin doesn't work out,
right.
Who else are you going to hire?
Yeah, there is nobody right now. I mean, unless that there is somebody that they know outside of outside of the Power Four that they have talked to at least, saying, hey, I have interest in this, and it just has not been released yet. You know, and you think of any of the group of 5 coaches that are doing really well, of course, they'll have a shot. Assistant coaches in the pros, but the good assistant coaches in the pros, they're coaching till January until February.
Right.
You can't wait that long in this day and age, especially when the transfer portal will close on January 16th.
No, I mean, Mississippi State, then you're off. Then you host Georgia, which that's going to be tough. Then you go to Kentucky, and the Wildcats always play everybody tough. You don't ever want to sleep on them. Just ask Lane Kiffin, who, you know, Florida might try to lure him away, just like they always do. And then you go to Lane Kiffin and Oxford. And I mean, this schedule, everyone talked about this before the season. Florida was set up to fail because of the schedule and with all the pressure around the program with Billy Napier. I mean, I just brought up the graphic a few minutes ago about his predecessor, Dan Mullen.
Right.
Had a winning percentage of .694. Billy Napier has a win percentage of .477.
That's insane.
And .694 got Dan Mullen fired.
I mean, and that's like close to 70% of your games. Yeah. What I find really interesting is now that Dan Mullen is doing well at UNLV, he has now become a candidate at a lot of these top jobs. And I wonder if he somehow, some way, finagles his way back to Gainesville. That would be interesting.
Oh, man, that would – I don't even know. That would be like Rich Rod going back to West Virginia in a way.
We just saw that this past season.
That feels like going back to the Toxic X.
Yeah.
Like that's just not a recipe for success. I don't see him. I know he keeps on talking about how, I want to build something here at UNLV. Yeah, that's the nice PR response. You know, everyone says that. Just go ask what's his name that we just talked to yesterday, Parker
Ream,
with the Texas A&M baseball coach leaving to go to Texas.
Yeah, I mean, and crazier things have happened in this day and age, and money talks, of course. Speaking of talking, we got a chance to hear from Billy Napier about the dreadful production so far on third downs.
It's a coaching decision within the game. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I think you can view it both ways. I think ultimately that's what we try to do. The analytics were very aggressive at that point, given the number of possessions that you could potentially have. Probably looking at 3 possessions. You know, we're at midfield. We're a play away from being in scoring position. So, you know, I think at that point in time, the number was aggressive. We went with the numbers. You know, do you punt them deep? I think the big thing would be the 3rd down, 2 down approach. We have to execute better on that play. Yeah. And then I think, that's the coaching decision of the game, right? So I do think you always evaluate those when they don't go the way you want them to. We've made those decisions in the past and they've paid off. Sometimes they don't, you know. So ultimately it comes down to the execution. You know, you're going to be kicking yourself if you punt it and you get a bad hop and it's a touchback, right? So
Billy Napier, they're talking about the 3rd downs, and I think there's a lot of people that hear him, and he's always had this really steady, monotone approach, and I wonder if they'll get somebody from a personality perspective that's a little bit different. Steve Spurrier was super fiery as a Florida head coach. I think a lot of the coaching success there, you need to match the energy almost of your state in a lot of ways, and it feels like some ways that Billy Napier just hasn't been able to do it as of right now. The big thing also, too, on the other side of this is Mississippi State, because for as much as we're praising Jeff Lebby and Mississippi State from what they were able to do earlier in the season, of course, they got that big win over Arizona State. They're still 0-2 in the SEC, so this is a big monumental game for him as well, and for what Mississippi State wants to do moving forward.
I mean, you cannot count anybody out in the SEC.
Yeah.
We see that every year, and it's never been more apparent than this year. Mississippi State at home earlier in the season knocked off Arizona State and sent them into a spiral. Mississippi State almost knocked off Tennessee. We've kind of seen Tennessee have a few close calls here with a couple of lower echelon teams in the SEC. But, I mean, you bring up something that's kind of interesting, where Florida might need a fiery guy as head coach. And honestly, I don't really see that coaching style really work anymore because everyone's so soft these days.
Yeah. And it's different. It's either super fiery or super like a technician, more of a scheme guy. Like I would consider Lane Kiffin one of these kind of scheme guys. Steve Sarkisian one of these scheme guys as well. And to me, I'm interested to see where they go from a personality standpoint for this next coach, because they've seen the rah guy. They've seen I think the high octane is kind of what I'm looking for as far as just like overall personality as far as off the field and what the team looks like on the field as well. Because I mean, Florida's Florida. You can recruit there.
Yeah.
And so you can build any kind of program you want to build. You could build a program that likes to dominate the football, likes to run the football, get the guys in the trenches. They have that. They got speed on the outside. They've always had that.
Yep.
Urban Meyer's teams were both big as far as the tight ends go, and they were fast on the outside with Percy Harvin and those guys. So to me, Florida, you have a lot of different options for where you want to go for your next head coach.
Look, I'm going to use my own personal experience here and use context clues to tell me if Florida is in a bad situation right now. As of right now, I believe the number 3 wide receiver in the class of 2027, or 2026, in the class of 2026, committed to Syracuse.
Wow.
And not Florida.
Wow.
He chose Syracuse over Florida. So
that
just tells me right there, okay, there's no more faith around this program, and he probably knew Billy Napier was probably not going to last by the time he got to college. So it's really interesting. They come out guns blazing in these games.
Yep.
2 touchdowns,
That's
first
right.
quarter, 157 yards.
Yeah.
And then 162 yards after the first quarter, and only a field goal. And then again, the third downs.
Yep.
1 for 10 in this game. Earlier in the year, 0 for 10 against Miami.
Right. And those are the killers. And they had the same amount of turnovers or fumbles as they did touchdowns for the rest of the game. It's completely seesawed, and you just wonder if the wheels are falling off there in Gainesville as the Florida Gators get ready to take on Mississippi State. Mississippi State 4-2 on the season, 0-2 in the SEC.